Hi, I'm Tommy Simpson. My music project is Macro Micro. I'm a father of two, a husband of one, and I'm from Los Angeles, California, born and raised. And I have a new album, A.fter I.ntelligence, that I hope you'll listen to.
When did you feel that you are connected with music?
Yeah, well, so I'd say it came in stages. So, when I was a little kid, my parents would play, music in the house and in the car. And I think when I was very young, they did that thing. We should play classical music in the house, and maybe he'll absorb something of that. And of course, I don't really remember too much of it, but I really very distinctly remember Beethoven, specifically the Fifth Symphony. And, dun, 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 dun. I'm like, what is that? And I think that, if you compare Beethoven through a lot of the other kind of main classical composers, he's just so emotionally striking. He didn't add flourishes that didn't need to be there. Everything was always just about like the emotion, and I really latched onto that. The next thing I'd say was a big deal was our local rock station, K-Rock, or KROQ 106.7. So I remember growing up and I wouldn't really pay attention to who the bands were, but I was listening to Nirvana and even Nine Inch Nails. There are so many instances of Nine Inch Nails songs I didn't know were them, that only years later in my teenage years, oh my God, I remember listening to that and loving that haunted feeling track. And, I think my first favorite bands were Green Day and pop punk, kind of silly, but still edgy kind of stuff. As K-Rock evolved over the years, grunge had died along with Kurt Cobain, and they had this period of time where it was just they didn't know what they wanted to be. So it was a lot of Third Eye Blind in 95 and 96. But by 97, they were starting to play Prodigy, Crystal Method, the Chemical Brothers, and even Daft Punk's first album. At that time, I was I'm a rock kid. That's my identity. I was I don't like electronic music. It sucks. But I loved all the Prodigy stuff and Chemical Brothers stuff that was playing on the radio. And I was well, yeah, because they're rock bands. They just have really good production. So that was kind of my switch into, kind of more my taste now. But it was a long, slow process. But I was definitely a rock and metal kid. And then the third thing I'd say was played a lot of Super Nintendo growing up, and N64 and whatnot. But I really remember, especially the music from Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2. I just really remember latching on to lots of video game music, but those in particular. And David Wise, who was the composer of those, he just had great sense of capturing emotion and actually conveying it. And he was so constrained by the software. It's kind of a miracle he was able to make the things and with the production sounds that he could out of just these incredibly rudimentary chips that they were using. And then later on, it was I wanted to learn how to play all these Metallica riffs on guitar. So I got a guitar and trying to figure out Metallica stuff. And then I'd just start noodling around and kind of started making up my own little riffs. And I don't know, that was maybe 11 and 12 and 13. And sometime around 13 is when I had a laptop and I was what's this GarageBand application? And so started just kind of recording things and starting writing songs all the time. And by the end of high school, I'd probably written and recorded 20 songs or so. And that kind of set me up later for getting more serious into I went from Logic and then to Ableton and, where I'm still happily at.
And did you get any music education?
When I was younger, starting in fourth grade, I started playing violin in the school orchestra and learning how to read sheet music. But I was always kind of just in the back trying to figure out how to play Green Day songs, and while everyone else is playing whatever the assigned thing was. And then I would just get kind of too bored of one instrument. And because I was never really trying to be first chair violin, I was well, I want to play drums. So then I did drums for a little bit. And then can I do the xylophone? So then one year I'd be doing the xylophone and upright bass and, just different stuff. So that was another bit of experience that really lended itself towards what I'm doing now, which is being kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, except for maybe the computer, I'd be the master of. In college, I dropped out. School was just, my brain was not made for school. But, I did kind of switch my major to music before the end. And after having a couple years in the wilderness, I came back to this place, Musicians Institute in Hollywood, which is like a music trade school. But once again, just did 2 semesters and made some really important musical friends. And so my time there was extremely valuable for that. Learned a thing or two there as well. But I'd say most of my education is from trying, failing, redoing, slowly getting better, incremental progress over years, and networks of friendships of people doing the same thing and teaching each other stuff. And that would be the main part of it. But I definitely think some of these other bits of music education, they all played a part in getting me to where I am today, but not the support pillar, I would say.
And when you just started writing music and were still figuring things out, was there someone or something that you wanted to replicate?
There was some element of that. I'd say the bigger piece of it, though, was just loving certain types of music and kind of being inspired by that and then trying to make my own thing. But you're always going to be painting with the colors on your palette. You know what I mean? So I'd say early on, it was about making things in the style of taking kind of like first 4 Metallica album style riffs, but then bringing in kind of like a new metal System of a Down kind of Deftones kind of thing. So that was definitely in my first era of kind of making music. Then as it was getting into more like later high school, when it was like the 9 Inch Nails Radiohead era, which those are the 2 things that never left me in terms of early original influences. Then it was about like trying to come up with guitar and synth kind of melding productions. I was always doing vocals early on in my stuff. A few things were instrumental, but mostly vocal-based track, like kind of songs. But yeah, most of it was just all being inspired by the things I loved, not trying to recreate them, but clearly you're hearing influence of things I was into. And then later on, things like Philip Glass and Steve Reich, very minimalist bass composers that, change slowly over time. Things like that started creeping in, and also getting into more ambient and kind of experimental and noise kind of music started filling in this more less song structured style to my tracks that I was making. Now I'd say, I don't try to make anything amorphous. I don't try to make anything songs. Some things kind of turn out more songy. Some things stay more amorphous. Some things kind of go back and forth within itself in a track, and that's kind of my happy place.
Can you give an advice to someone who's just starting to discover music for themselves?
For one, just don't stop. Do it over and 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 over again, because where you see results is not in any short bursts. It's like it's over the long term. And the thing too is when you're starting, it's an exponential curve. So like it takes 100% of your resources to go from 1 to 2. But then it takes 100% of your resources to go from 2 to 4. And so when you're starting, everything is so much harder because you don't know all of the colors that you can paint with. Every time you sit down at the computer, just say, okay, what's one new thing I can try today? Oh, I've never played with this flanger. What the heck is a flanger? And maybe the first time you use it, it sounds all metallic-y and thin and weird, and that sounds kind of bad. But the next day, try it again and try using it instead of on a guitar. Put it on a drum track and be like, whoa, I can tell this is not what it's supposed to be doing for, but there's something really cool and weird about that. And just every time you sit down, try to do at least one thing that you haven't done before. The novice mindset is the most crucial to creativity. You always want to be like exploring, discovering, and like excited that you learned something new, and like just follow these happy accidents, these what the fucks. That's where the magic is. And once you get, more and more developed, you'll kind of start losing that magic because you'll just start getting in the habit of doing the things but you have to just always keep doing something you've never done before each time, even if it's one little thing. It's how you can sustain the love and the passion of it, I'd say.
And are you still doing it?
I really do always try to do something, some different approach, some different plugin, some different thing, routing things differently. It could be the same type of stuff, but instead of going distortion, then filter, or filter, then distortion, you're going to get different kind of colors, even though it's the same 2 things. Yeah, just always stay in that mindset. I still am, so.
So what's the story behind the Macro Micro name?
Macro Micro, the name of it, it's, the genesis is there's a couple different stages. There's a realization that's very common in psychedelic experiences where you suddenly perceive the scale of the universe in this holistic way. We're in a world, and the world is within a solar system, and the solar system is part of a galaxy, and look within as well. Look at how there's a nucleus, and the electrons are going around the nucleus, and there's clusters of these atoms and nuclei that turn into molecules like galaxies, and there's just these patterns that happen, within and without, that you kind of realize like you're almost inside the body of some celestial something. Is it a being? Is it a process? Is it, we'll never know. There's mitochondria with its own separate DNA inside every cell in our bodies. And could you ever try to explain to that what the phenomenon of Michael Jackson was? It's like there's so many layers of abstraction that it's just absurd to ever think you could. And I think that we're in that position within the ultimate largest version of all things that have been, are, and will be. And I like to think of that as God. I don't think God is something we'll ever know what it is, but the whole macro micro name is to try to put you in that kind of ecstatic realization of like everything around you is holy. You are part of this incredibly complex mystery that we'll never solve, but will always inspire to continue to try to further understand. That's what I'm trying to get people to feel with my music, and I thought it was an appropriate label. What you could just quickly try to describe macro micro as, if you've ever seen the Eames Foundation video, The Powers of 10, Ray and Charles Eaves, these incredible designers from the mid-century modern movement, they made this movie called The Powers of 10 where it starts out, the camera's hovering over two people having a picnic at a park, and it starts zooming out and zooming out and zooming out, and now you're seeing the field in the distance, and then it's like the state, and then it's the US, and then it's the Earth, and then now you're in space, and it's going faster and faster, and every 10 seconds you're increasing the speed by factors of 10, and then so you go out of the universe, and it goes to the very farthest thing that they were able to conceive of in the 70s, and then the camera goes all the way back in, gets back to the people, and then it goes within the body, and it starts going to inside the skin and inside cells and into the atomic world. I probably saw that in high school, and it made such a super, even before psychedelic experiences, there was something so profound and so, like for me, holy is the only way I could really kind of get close to trying to describe that feeling. But that's the perfect visual encapsulation of what macro micro is to me. And
tell me a little bit about the style of your music and how it started to shape.
The course of macro micro releases, I've kind of gone from more IDM, and then other times more ambient, sometimes more noise, more experimental electronic. They're all, cousins and neighbors on the same block, but I never want to start with like an idea of, I want to make this kind of album, or I want to explore this idea. Every time I'm making music, I'm always just coming from that one spot of try something different each time. And I like to just kind of experiment with sounds and see what's happening. And then like if something catches my inspiration and I'm hearing something, I just like to explore where that sound wants to take me. So I almost feel like the song kind of builds itself in a way, and it's leading me along by hand. Or maybe another metaphor I'd like to say is it's like I'm in the woods and I don't have a map, but I have a compass. And so I've got an intuitive reading of where north is, of where, my passions are, but I'm going through this forest somewhat blind. And the song kind of takes me where it wants to go. In the last several years, I feel like there's been a great wave of really inspiring new kind of IDM forms of music that has just gotten me also needing a cathartic release, needing some kind of propulsion to kind of deal with maybe pent up anxieties or fears about the world or about just my own place in it. And I've been definitely much more oriented towards this cathartic kind of beat oriented music. And just with the state of the world, I've definitely been finding release and purging of these emotions through kind of more distorted, more aggressive, more energetic types of music. And that's kind of where my center of gravity is at the moment.
Can you share a bit about how writing music is a form of therapy and self-discovery for you?
I'm not a very verbal person. I mean, I talk, I share stories and experiences, but like I'm happiest when I'm kind of, if there's a technology that I could use telepathy to just have you feel what I'm feeling, because I'm not even thinking of it in words unless I'm trying to speak it out. If I could just zap that understanding into you, that would be my preferred form of communication. And I think music basically is the closest thing we have to that. When I'm making music, there's so many times where I'll be feeling like I might even start tearing up because there's something I can't express within me, but it's just coming out through sound. And like now I can finally encapsulate this thing and I can give it to you. And, you know, it's going to still be very impressionistic and it's going to be abstract. But the fact that someone can just, I feel it, man. I know where you're at right now. It's definitely the magic of music, is this ability to express yourself without words in a way that's way more clear, yet totally more abstract than words could ever be. Words are like, you know, taking a thing and putting something around it so you can see it, but that's also confining it in some sense. And I love that you can just have the boundless emotion of it through listening and creating.
And when you are creating, what is therapeutic about this process?
There's many times where I'm making something and the emotion will be so strong and resonant of just the types of chord progression or the way certain things are interacting with each other that I'll just, something that's been locked in my head, just suddenly the door gets unlocked and the thing floods into me. It's silly to say, but like I cry sometimes, or sometimes I'm also just like feeling so ecstatic and I just like put my arms up in the air because it's exactly what I knew was, you know, some feeling, some repressed something that is stuck inside of me and I still haven't figured out how to articulate it, except in these moments it's like the light switch goes on and I'm feeling either the antidote or I'm seeing it for what it is, and I can kind of see it in the mirror and be afraid of it or disgusted by it or, you know, or sympathetic. Like, okay, Tommy, you still are that little broken teenager in certain ways that you still need a hug from time to time. And those moments are so special for me. And I know I also have these moments when I listen to other people's music. And if anyone could have that, you know, feeling from my music, if there's something that they're able to feel within themselves that they couldn't figure out how to say otherwise, I mean, that's just kind of would be the utmost privilege. And it would just be, I would feel like I would be giving back to the system, the music, the system, the interrelationship between music and art and personality and spirituality and all of that. It's given me so much, and just if I can like be part of that for someone else in any small way, it would just be so rewarding. So
let's talk about your experience working with Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross.
There was a very clear BCAD moment in my life, and that was before I heard The Fragile and after I heard The Fragile. You know, I was 16, and it just completely, not only that album, but just their entire discography completely changed my life. I really learned so much of my sonic sensibilities through just obsessively digesting their music. And there was this unbelievable just opportunity of a lifetime that I got to work with Trent and Atticus from 2019 to 2021. Basically, it started just as this, they needed someone who would just bring stuff from their storage to their new studio. And I was like, I'll do it for free. I'll pay you to do that. As I'm bringing some stuff in, I'm noticing all these rare synths. So Trent kind of famously loves this Swarmatron. It's the instrument that people associate with, you know, the Social Network soundtrack and How to Destroy Angels early albums. But there's a second synth that this guy made called the Dewanatron. You have to really be a total geek like me to even have heard about what that thing is. So Trent's walking by, I'm like, oh, dude, you have the Dewanatron? He's like, oh, you know what that thing is? And so then we just started talking, and, you know, we would be hanging out and kind of eating at the lunches. And, you know, after a couple of weeks after that job was done, it was like, okay, that's it for me. But they came to me and said, hey, do you want to stick around? We'll think of some dumb shit for you to do. The direct quote. And I was like, yes, give me all your dumb shit. So yeah, I ended up staying there for 2.5 years, and I learned so much just about, especially about work ethic. I was so I'd always read in the interviews his whole, yes, we start at this time and go to that, but it's a different thing from when you read it to when you live it, because before that, I started working there just before, 6 months before my daughter was born, so my first kid. So I was still very much in the, I just record at night. I do tasks during the day, but then I stay up till 3 in the morning and go on these all night, music benders. And while that's certainly fun to do, it's not really conducive to a healthy lifestyle, especially, once you're a father and all that. And when I started working with them, instead of intellectually understanding it, I physically understood how much it changes your life as a creative if you come at it with like a workman approach. You start every day at a certain time and you go until a certain time. It puts you in this flow state, this Zen-like thing, so that when your body just expects that it's going to do this pattern every day, then your brain stops firing about, should I do this? Should I do that? No, you're just doing this. And then when you carve out that space, your mind is just open then to just create. And you're so much more prolific when you get a month into this routine, and now your brain just frees up to actually dive into the creativity, dive into the emotion of what you're doing, explore what the sound is telling you and follow it. And that was just so important to kind of restructuring how I approach music as a professional. When I was working there, we were doing all these big movies like Soul and Mank, and we did the Watchmen HBO series. So being able to kind of experience from start to finish how intense and how involved, like a scoring job is. You're doing it at the very end of the post-production of something. And so all of those creatives, they're like really trying to push as fast as they can because they've been working on this thing for 2 years. They feel like they're this close to the finish line when you just start. And so you're jumping on that treadmill like at full speed. Last thing, another very unsexy thing, but so important. Working with them taught me just how to read the damn manual for a synth, because I would always get intimidated reading a manual with technical terms, so I just would never do it. I would just, whatever I could figure out intuitively, I would do that, and if I didn't, that'd be fine. But, when you're working with like your idols and they want you to figure out how to, there's some issue with the MIDI to CV conversion of this thing, why the fuck is it not doing this? Can you please figure this out in 30 minutes or less? 10 minutes would be great. It just forces you to cross that Rubicon of like diving into the manual, learning what these terms are. And that helped me so much in terms of modular synthesis, in terms of getting much deeper into like hardware stuff, learning how to route things differently in Ableton. Just so much opened up for me as part of that experience. So